So I want to tell you just a little bit about me so you understand the ideas and perspectives I want to bring to you today. Okay. So my background is mostly in computer science, but I've done work in music, I've done work in neuroscience, often at boundaries between different areas and areas that are changing very quickly. I've been visiting Trivandrum since 2000, 24 years. I was very lucky to be here for 6 months with my family. So I'm excited to be here. It's nice to have dosa and vada and all of my favorite foods. Just 2 pictures of me from Kovalone many years ago. I discussed this background because it affects how I want to work with you today. My main work now focuses on, that's not gonna work. Focuses on inquiry-based education, active learning, using the best techniques we know for education to help students. My experiences with music, with neuroscience, and other areas suggest that combining AI and education is not going to be easy. I want to help you ask some questions, think about these issues, so that for the rest of the conclave, we're asking questions, not just looking for answers. So, how do people learn best? If we want to use AI to improve education, we need to start with what are the best ways to learn. So, here are some possible ways to learn. I would like to take just maybe 2 or 3 minutes to have you think and talk with the person next to you. Which of these techniques do you think are the best ways to learn? And which do you think are the least effective ways to learn? Okay, so 2 minutes, think, talk to the person next to you. What are the best ways to learn? What are the least effective ways to learn? Okay. How many people think lecture is the best way to learn? How many people think taking notes is the best way to learn? Confused. No one thinks lectures and taking notes are the best ways to learn, but what are the ways that we use in our universities? Okay. Who thinks discussing with other people is the best way to learn? Who thinks discovering ideas and understanding things for yourself is the best way to learn? Practicing skills, solving problems. So, this is interesting. Research shows people learn best when they interact with other people and discover or construct their own understanding. People learn much less when they're passive, when they sit and listen. So why are so many of our universities and schools focused on passive or slightly active learning? That's another topic. We're not going to answer that today, but I challenge you for the next 2 days to think not just how can we use AI to do what we currently do, how can we use AI to make the best possible education for the students of the future. I think too often we get a new technology and we let the technology dictate how we use it, rather than saying, what is the most important problem? Where can we make the biggest difference? How do we use technology to do that? So in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I want to help you think about how changes in technology affect people and society. I want to help you think about how changes in education might have important impacts. And I want you to think about how generative AI might either help or hurt students and teachers. I think in the last 6 months, there's been a lot of concern about, oh, ChatGPT will make it too easy for students to answer questions and too hard for teachers to assign marks. That's one issue, but I think there are many other issues that we need to think about and talk about. So I'm going to split this session into 3 pieces as follows. So when we think about how technology affects society, I want to start with an example that is dear to me, music. My friend Akshu Sankar is here somewhere. He also has a deep interest in both technology and music. The earliest music was an oral tradition. Someone created a new song, they sat and played it for someone else who listened and played it back. At some point, people developed ways of notating music, writing down notes. What did that mean? First, it meant we could remember things that had been played and play them back the same way without having to memorize everything. But then it made a much, much bigger change. When we can write music down, now we can write music that can be played by many, many people. You could never have a symphony if you had an oral tradition. How could you explain to 50 musicians who had to play what notes at what time? Then the printing press came along. We could have notated music. And now it was much easier to share this music notation with other people. You didn't have to copy every piece by hand. You could make many copies quickly. Now music was something that you could go to the store, buy music, take it to your home, and perform it for yourself. Now music was something anyone could do. A big change in society. That took us from 5,000 years ago to 500 years ago. Now think about the changes just in the last 100 years. Right? Early in the 19th century, we developed the phonograph. Now suddenly we could preserve the sounds, not just the notation. We went from 78 RPM, 45 RPM, 33 RPM. How many people remember this? A few. Then we had these amazing things called tapes, 8-track tapes, cassette tapes. There was concern, oh, now it's too easy to make copies of music. Why would anyone buy a record when they could make an illegal copy on a cassette tape? Then we got the compact disc, and there was a whole new set of concerns, right? A cassette tape will slowly stretch out and stop working. A digital copy of a CD is exactly the same bits, exactly the same information. Then we stopped buying CDs and we started buying digital music. Then we stopped buying digital music, and now most of the young people I know just pay a subscription. They can listen to any music they want anytime. But think about how that changes the way we interact with music. You don't have to go to a store to buy music. You can download it, you can stream it, you can hear a new voice, a new style of music, and instantly hear the best versions of that music in the world. So the changes in technology are important, but those changes in technology have led to huge changes in how people interact with each other. Those are the things I want you to think more about today. So if you think about 100 years ago today to today, do you think people listen to more music or less music? More, right? 100 years ago, you would have to either play it yourself or you would have to go to a concert. Now you can wake up to music, you can fall asleep to music, you can listen to music. I have students that come to class and are listening to music the whole time. Do people perform music more or less? How many of you play a musical instrument? Not very many. I would suggest that people perform music much less. And as a musician, that makes me sad because I think there's a joy from creating music that's very different from the joy of listening to music. And one of my concerns with generative AI is that we may lose that joy of creation. The satisfaction of writing a song, of writing a poem. If we can click a button and get something instantly, no effort, why would we spend the effort to create it ourselves? So think about those questions. Now I want to think for a minute about the development of software and programming languages. In the 1940s, we had assembly language. You had to make binary ones and zeros by hand to control the computer. Programming was very, very difficult. The programs we wrote were very, very simple by today's standards. Over the last 50 years, the programming languages we have used change, it seems, every year. But much of the nature of programming has not changed as much. One of the things I want you to really remember is that when we think about problems and tools, it's much better to start with the problem and design a tool to solve that problem than to start with a tool and look for problems to solve. I spent several years doing electronic music. I think a lot of electronic music is very bad because, one, it's either created by a musician that just bought a synthesizer or by a programmer that just got a sound card. And computer music technology changes so fast that no one learns to master it. Think about the great music. It was written by composers that spent their entire lives learning to compose for a particular instrument. Bach spent his entire life composing for the organ. Beethoven spent his entire life composing for piano and violin and symphonies. People that do computer music, every year there's a new digital device they can buy. How are they going to learn to master that device if it's always changing? If the tools we use change too quickly, we will not know how to master them. We will not know how to control them. But another interesting thing to think about, when I look at changes in technology, so often people think, oh, this technology will eliminate jobs, it will take away opportunities. More and more often, having more tools and better tools actually expands the things we can do. Recorded music didn't eliminate performance. I think it actually encouraged performance because you can listen to music digitally and now you want to go see the performer live. More and better software tools didn't reduce the number of programmers, it greatly expanded the number of programmers. As one of the people said in the inaugural session, right? We now use software for everything that we do. We need people that can create software in all domains of work. I see that driving around Trivandrum, driving around the US. We keep adding more and more roads. Does it get any faster to go somewhere? It took us 45 minutes to get to Karyavatam yesterday from the city. So often, expanding the tools expands the uses of them. So yes, I believe AI is going to change the way we work, but I also believe it will let us do things that we could not have done before. Here's another newer example of change. We're starting to see autonomous vehicles, at least in the US. I think it will be many years before autonomous vehicles can survive in India, but we will see. So think for a minute. I'll give you a few minutes to talk with your neighbor and have some ideas to share. If we get to a future where many vehicles are autonomous, they drive themselves, and they're electric rather than using petrol, what impacts will those have? The cars themselves will change, but think about the other things in the world that will change. How will this change the number of vehicles that are produced? How will it change businesses that involve vehicles? How will it change traffic issues and injuries? How will it change the needs and duties of hospitals and police departments? What other things might happen when these autonomous vehicles become very 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes? Think about these things, and then I'd like to hear ideas from some of you about how these might work.
To sort of behavior we start off with initially, because initially if it behaves in a very very different way, it might even cause more crashes than current, because the expectation, the default expectation from drivers for other vehicles and how they behave is what it is. So given that these things, from what we hear, tend to be cautious as drivers, the autonomous vehicles, that is not the default here. And so that might actually end up, at least in the short term, might cause more crashes, even though I'm sure that the technology is touted as being safer.
Yes, thank you. Someone else.
So this man-machine conflicts would also come, because suppose a machine accident done by electric car, whom you charge, okay, and then if humans do, you can cancel his license. So how does it work? Who is held responsible for any such thing? So I think law, something which is not there, has to be considered here.
So the legal liability issues. That's a very good point. Yes.
The ethical aspects can also.
Sir, what about the digital dilemmas before a autonomous driver, like the trolley, trolley problem? So could you please elaborate on trolley dilemma?
Oh, the trolley dilemma. Yes. So this is a famous thought experiment in philosophy, right? There's a trolley coming down the track. If the trolley does not, and you can turn the trolley. If you do not turn the trolley, it will kill 5 people. But if you turn the trolley, it will kill 1 person. Do you turn the control or not? An economist would say yes, better to kill 1 person than 5 people. But many people think, wait, it's not my fault if it kills 5 people. I touch the handle and turn the trolley. I have now decided that someone's going to die. Yes, so there are many legal, ethical dilemmas. There's someone here that wanted to? Yeah.
Hello. From this situation, I understand as number of vehicles, I mean autonomous vehicles increases, the second clause will increases. That means number of repairs, fuel, recharging, these will increase. And the third, fourth and fifth one will decrease as increases autonomous vehicles. Because all electric vehicle, I wish they will follow some protocols, traffic rules, everything. And these vehicles will follow, avoid crashes, avoid hospitals, these things. This is my scenario and my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So it's very hard to know, right? Here are some things that I've read. I have some links. I can share the slides later. People believe that if the vehicles can move themselves, we don't all need to have a vehicle at our own home that sits there all the day. So maybe vehicles will become more like taxis where they move around. A few companies own most of the vehicles, and we don't own them as individuals. That means there would be fewer vehicles, they would be driving more of the time, they would probably get replaced faster. We would need fewer parking lots. Think about how much space in every city and town is used by cars that sit and do nothing. Think how much more beautiful our cities and towns could be if that space became parks with grass and trees and places for children to play. Think how many businesses are built around cars. Petrol stations, car repair, car decoration, car sales, many of those would change. As someone mentioned, hopefully there will be many fewer crashes. Most police departments spend a large fraction of their time enforcing or trying to enforce laws and dealing with the results of crashes. Most hospitals spend a large part of their budget on people that have been injured by vehicles. This could change dramatically. But for governments, think about how much government revenue comes from vehicles. You have to pay to drive on roads, you have to pay a tax when you buy fuel, you have to pay to park, you have to... So at first, these autonomous vehicles sound like, oh, this would be nice. I would not have to drive. I could take a nap during my commute. I could read a book during my commute. But the changes could be much deeper, much broader, much more different than we think. So again, another important idea to remember is that most of the real challenges in our world are not technology challenges, they're challenges in people and sociology. I spent many years doing software development. Writing programs is hard. Talking to other humans and understanding what they want and communicating with them is much, much more difficult. Those are the challenges we need to focus on. Now let's think a bit about education. Think about who it is that wants education, what it is that we want people to learn. One of the earlier speakers talked about data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Yes, it's getting easier to find the data and the information, but I wonder, can you really reach knowledge and wisdom without going through the first steps? How many people are parents? Do your children accept all the wisdom you try to share with them? No? How many are teachers or professors? Do students all accept all of the knowledge and wisdom you share with them? So I think we need to be careful. Generative AI may make it easy to produce the literature review. It may make it easy to summarize an article, but having that review, having that summary is not the goal. Those are there as part of a process of learning and thinking and asking questions.
Dr. Cliff,
Yes.
do you agree that our children has better wisdom?
Oh, sorry.
Better wisdom than many of the professors and teachers. Children are having better wisdom than many of the teachers and professors. Do you agree?
Better with
Wisdom.
better wisdom?
Yeah, children are having.
I think children are naturally programmed to seek out data and information and create knowledge. I think too often our schools teach them not to do that. So let's think for a minute, what are the real challenges in education? What are the real problems that we want AI to help us solve? Rather than saying, we have AI, what will it do? What are the things we want better in education? Maybe AI will help us, maybe it'll make things worse. Take 1 or 2 minutes to think about that. Okay, so let's think a minute about challenges and opportunities. When I teach, my goal is to have students interact and discover or construct knowledge as much as possible. The challenge I have is that if I have a room with 100 students in it and they're working in small groups, it's very difficult for me to know what each of those groups is doing. If there are 10 students, it's easy. I can walk from group to group. If there are 100 students, it's very difficult. I want tools to help me do that better. Not to send feedback to students that they're not going to read on essays that they created with ChatGPT. That doesn't matter. I want to understand what the students are discussing, what problems they're having, what progress they're making, how it can make those discussions more helpful for them. What challenges or opportunities did some of you talk about?
So I actually think like the student-teacher relationship right now is like a dictatorship. I don't think students are getting enough freedom. It's like the teachers are gonna be like, you should by heard this thing is gonna come for the exam. That's it. You're gonna score marks. You're gonna get a job, and your life is set. So I don't think we are having the opportunities, if that's the word.
Yes, thank you. Down here.
The challenge is AI is going to replace teachers. As those students say, why there is a dictator? There is no need of a dictator there in teaching. Instead, this has my opinion is this is a challenge. This is an opportunity in AI. Microsoft has a product, Copilot. They are developing Copilots for almost everything, all of their products. If you want to do programming, they will help you like that. Then where is the need of a teacher?
So I would say AI could replace some teachers. The question is, will it replace all teachers? Copilot is good to solve many problems. Will it solve all problems?
And just a sort of quick follow-up to that. I mean, I think there's another, to those two bullets that you had there, I think there's another challenge that I feel as educators, we should worry, because while you rightly said at the start that we shouldn't feel dictated to by the existence of this technology, I think there's a sense in which we are forced to grapple with its implications, for instance, on potential jobs and so forth. So when we see that it's really good at certain things, and those are the kinds of things we have been stressing on, trying to get our students to get good at, creative acts, which this is capable of producing at some level and presumably getting better at, then I think this forces us as educators to grapple with the fact that it exists. And maybe that's a third point, or maybe you want to clump it under challenges, but I do feel that that's a major challenge for us as educators. How do we react to the fact that it exists and is getting better?
Yes, I would agree.
Sir, I currently think that the teachers are not up to date in their respective subjects. Like more often, the sites like W3 schools and free code camps are better up to date about the subjects, while our teachers are preparing old notes for us. Every student think, why should I sit in a classroom full of noises of children? Like, enjoy it, but a teacher standing in front of us is not as up to date like us, the students. Like Elliot sir said, it will replace the teachers like who are not up to date as the students. I think that is very really problem that is facing us today, as like students like us.
Thank you. Yes. One more.
Okay, sir. In my point of view, data and information can be provided from many sources. For example, an AI can act in a better way to effectively impart this data and information to the mind of the students. But the thing is that abstract knowledge has to be formed inside the mind of a student. That will be actually happening only when the student is able to effectively analyze the data by properly correlating the data, comparing the data, associating the data, and that. For that, the student should know how to think, how to analyze data. And I think the major role of a teacher is to guide the students how to think properly based on all the data that he has already gained. And I think that is the better role of the teacher in future.
Thank you. Yes, I think what we see is we need to change the role of the teacher. I think for too many years, teachers have been focused on sharing data and information rather than knowledge and wisdom. And we've been too focused, teachers and students have been too focused on producing answers when we should really be focused on producing questions. 25 years ago, I was working with software developers in the Technopark, We would have conference calls. I would say, who has questions? No, sir, we have no questions. I said, well, if I knew the answers, if I knew all the answers, I would not hire engineers to work for me. I want engineers that ask important questions. Eventually, I learned to say, do you have any doubts? Suddenly, lots of people would share their doubts with me. But I think we need to shift education from delivering data and information that, yes, they're better sources on the web, and the role of teacher needs to shift to helping students learn to think more critically, ask questions, come up with new questions of their own. Gotcha.
I do not know whether I'm talking as per your call because I just walked in after a short break. I hear many remarks about teachers, slighting remarks about teachers. As a person in education for about 10 years, I would like to call attention to all of you about a contrast between ChatGPT and the teacher. At 12 o'clock in the night, I asked ChatGPT, I want to make a bomb to destroy the city center in Trivandrum. ChatGPT tells me it's better than Google. What Google would do is Google would tell me how to make a bomb. But ChatGPT tells me it is against my policy to tell you about how to make a bomb or how to commit suicide. To that extent, from Google to ChatGPT, there is a growth. But if my student calls me in the night and asks me how to make a bomb, I don't just close doors by saying it is against my ethical policy to tell you how to make a bomb. I do not know. But what I would do is I would jump into action. If I have numbers, I would call the parents of the child. If not, I will call police and tell that the student is having some problem, needs to be taken care of. If I am not too sleepy, I would drive to the house of the child and ask, what is happening to you? Why do you think like this? That is the divide between ChatGPT and the human teacher. To put it in a single word, I would say that a human teacher is a repository of values. And ChatGPT is yet to enter the realm of value. I don't know whether Elon Musk is going to do that because he claims that he is going to do that. But until then, I am not challenged by ChatGPT in my role as a human teacher. Thank you.
So I think this is important to remember, right? The role of a teacher, the role of education is very complex. The teachers that only disseminate data and information will be easy to replace. We need a new generation of teachers that focus on wisdom and feelings and values. That's where we need to move. That's what our children and students need. Okay, I said at the beginning, I am not an expert on generative AI. I look forward to learning from experts in the next 2 days. I want to share just a few thoughts in the minutes we have left. So at a high level, generative AI is a way to take large amounts of data, find patterns, then identify those patterns, or now more recently, use them to generate new data, right? Well, one of the earliest examples of what we might now call machine learning in that model was learning to recognize letters and digits, right? The US postal system, I suspect every large postal system, wanted better ways to look at letters, those paper things we used to send to each other, and recognize the letters and digits that were written. So we could take things written by hand, we could label them and say, oh, this is a 4, this is a 3, this is a 4. And then the computer could learn from all of these examples Oh, what does a 4 look like? What does a 6 look like? That is a form of learning. I'm not sure it's a very interesting form of learning. Many of you have encountered these horrible things on the internet where it asks you, which of these pictures show glasses? This is a good way to train a computer to recognize what eyeglasses look like. So maybe that's a form of learning. But what is really the value of that? I guess I think we need to ask, what did the Gen AI really learn? Did it learn that 4 is greater than 3? No. Did it learn why people wear eyeglasses? No. It just learned to recognize them. And I see the same thing with the generative tools. They're producing things. Are the things they're producing really interesting or valuable? Matching a pattern is not the same as understanding. Back when I did neuroscience research, I met some patients like this gentleman. I'll just play you this short video clip if it works. This is a syndrome called fluent aphasia.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talk with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. They'll save in the moment. He'll have water very soon for him. With luck for him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to
We
get to
will store it
June.
right here and they'll save their hands right there for them.
And what were we just doing?
Do you understand what he was saying? So, he has a syndrome called fluent aphasia. His brain can still put words into sentences and flow in a way that sounds very reasonable. But there are huge gaps in the meaning of those words. If we had listened to a longer clip, you would have heard the interviewer say, oh, what you meant was you went on a cruise and you did this thing. I would suggest that ChatGPT has fluent aphasia. It's very good at running sequences of words together in ways that seem reasonable. Right? If he were speaking in a language that none of us spoke, it would sound perfectly fine. When I listen to people speak Malayalam, I hear the flow of the letters, it seems perfectly reasonable. I have no idea whether there's meaning in the words that you're saying or not. That's what the generative AI tools are doing now. They're stringing together words. They're being trained on very large bodies of data, but it's not clear that there's really any meaning or understanding in what's going on there. I think that's something we need to worry about. So I think the question really is, are we dealing with artificial intelligence or artificial insanity? Are these tools going to help us do important, useful, meaningful, valuable work? Or are they going to be a huge distraction? Already Amazon is having to place limits on the number of books an author can create in an hour because people are using ChatGPT to produce books to put on Amazon. I would suggest that very soon, the job of a search engine is not going to be finding a piece of knowledge. It's going to be screening the important, useful, value-based knowledge from 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 times as much fluent aphasia from generative AIs. Think about all the political issues in the last 5 years with social media. So many people get their information, they don't verify it, they hear it, they think it's true. I think there's a scary future coming for us. So that's a caution. I am generally an optimistic person. So I guess the last idea I would like to share with you, I deeply believe that there are things humans can do that computers are not yet close to doing. To me, if tools can help us do a task better, then there's something else we should be doing. If I can use a tool to help my students access data and information, wonderful. I can waste my time on that. I can now focus my time on helping them develop reasoning, values, insights, questioning abilities. That's where I think we need to focus our time. So, as I said at the outset, I'm not an expert in AI. I've spent many years thinking about education, talking with teachers all over the world, talking with students all over the world. If our goal today and tomorrow is to think about using generative AI in education, we need to make sure the education is first. What is it we really want to do? Are these tools that can help us? Are these tools going to hurt us? How are we going to put that in a context that helps our students and helps ourselves to be successful? So thank you very much for your thoughts, for your listening. I look forward to talking with you.